Honest to Vlog.
Good morning, lasagna. Regarding what Erica was saying on the whole cultural difference thing, my first thought that came to mind was how cool it is that those differences exist at all. I just think it's really cool how diverse we are able to be as humans. It's probably one of my favorite traits, like, about the human race. You look at any other species of animal, whether it's an ant or an anteater or an antelope, that's a wall. And pretty much within that species, there's really only a very narrow thing of what they can call life. Like, as an ant, pretty much all ants ever have a very similar lifestyle, and there's very little deviation that they get to have, and very little choices that they get to make. Whereas, as humans, we're pretty much the only species that has this humongously broad field of what we can do with our lives, and as our society advances, it keeps getting more and more broad as far as the choices that we can make. If you think about some of the ways in which you can make your living nowadays, and how absurd it is considering that it's so far from human survival, and yet you can use that as your survival mechanism now. I mean, there are people who are doing this, talking to a camera and calling it their job now. Like, how did we come all the way from having to forage for food every day to now being able to talk to a camera, and it basically serves the same purpose? And it's amazing. There are just so many different niches that humans can fit into now, and so many different things that they can believe. And I think that's really cool that as humans are able to do that. Yay, life! But on the other side of that, you obviously have what Eric was talking about, you know, disputes and disagreements between people because of these differences. But considering how different humans can be and how large the gap is and what different people do, I'd argue that the disagreements between people are actually astoundingly rare. Just consider how weird it is that you can have someone who is, you know, firmly atheist and someone else who is firmly Christian, and yet, even with those completely different mindsets coming in, they can end up living their lives in really similar ways. Like, it almost doesn't really make sense that here two people are who disagree on, you know, the foundation of what life is supposed to be, and they disagree on, you know, what life is and how it should be lived. And all of that, you know, at the very root core, they have that disagreement. But then you can find people who have this huge disagreement at their core, then choosing to actually go and live their lives in very similar ways. I mean, even just on terms of YouTube, you have people who are vlogging with similar styles, talking to a similar niche of the nerdfighter community, and yet they're coming from completely different backgrounds. Well, it almost seems absurd to me that that would happen. How do people with completely different roots end up with the same exact goals?
Do I have anything else to say?
Oh.